How can ancient Stoic wisdom help us navigate the chaos of modern life? Once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words, written nearly 2,000 years ago, hold a timeless truth that feels more relevant today than ever. In a world filled with constant distractions, overwhelming stress, and unpredictable challenges, Stoicism offers a roadmap for cultivating resilience, emotional control, and inner peace. It's not just a philosophy of the past, it's a practical toolkit for thriving in the present. In this video, we'll dive into 35 actionable strategies rooted in Stoic principles, each designed to help you tackle everyday struggles with clarity and confidence. Whether you're dealing with setbacks, managing stress, or simply seeking a deeper sense of purpose, these timeless lessons will empower you to take control of what you can and let go of what you can't. Let's explore how the wisdom of the Stoics can transform the way you face life's challenges, one step at a time. The first step to peace of mind is understanding what you can and cannot control. This is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, often referred to as the Dichotomy of Control. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply: "Some things are in our control and others are not." This idea might sound straightforward, but its implications are profound. By learning to distinguish between what is within our power and what lies beyond it, we free ourselves from unnecessary anxiety and frustration. Think about it this way: when you focus on things outside your control, like other people's opinions, the weather, or traffic, you're essentially handing over your peace of mind to external forces. But when you shift your attention to what you can influence, your actions, your reactions, your decisions, you reclaim your power. This shift doesn't just reduce stress, it empowers you to take meaningful steps forward, no matter the circumstances. Let's bring this into a real-world context. Imagine you're dealing with a stressful situation at work. Maybe a project isn't going as planned or a colleague is being difficult. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but Stoicism invites you to pause and ask yourself, what can I actually control here? You can't force your colleague to change their behavior, but you can choose how you respond. You can't control every outcome of the project, but you can focus on doing your best with the tasks in front of you. This mindset doesn't just make challenges more manageable, it transforms how you approach them. Now, here's a reflective question for you. What are 3 things in your current situation that you can control? Maybe it's how you spend your time, the effort you put into a goal, or even the way you talk to yourself. Take a moment to write them down. Recognizing these areas of control isn't just an exercise, it's a way to build resilience and clarity, one small step at a time. What if the worst happened? How would you handle it? This might sound counterintuitive, but the Stoics believed that facing our fears head-on could actually make us stronger. This practice is called negative visualization, and it's about deliberately imagining the worst-case scenarios in life, not to dwell on them, but to prepare ourselves mentally and emotionally. By envisioning challenges like losing a job, facing a health crisis, or even the loss of a loved one, we train our minds to respond with resilience rather than panic. It's like building a mental armor that shields us from the shock of adversity. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, often wrote about the importance of preparing for misfortune. He advised that we should not only anticipate difficulties, but also remind ourselves that they are a natural part of life. In one of his letters, he said, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." By practicing negative visualization, we remove the element of surprise, making it easier to face challenges with clarity and calm. Let's take a modern example. Imagine you've been laid off from your job. Instead of letting fear paralyze you, you've already visualized this scenario. You've thought about updating your resume, reaching out to your network, and exploring new opportunities. Because you've mentally rehearsed this situation, you're better equipped to handle it with confidence and resourcefulness. This exercise doesn't just prepare us for hardship, it also deepens our gratitude for what we have right now. When we imagine losing something, we often realize how much we take it for granted. Here's a simple way to start. Take 5 minutes today to think about a challenge you fear. Close your eyes and picture it vividly. How would you respond? What steps would you take? By doing this, you're not inviting disaster. You're building the mental and emotional tools to face it if it ever comes. Over time, this practice can transform the way you approach uncertainty, helping you find strength and perspective even in the face of life's toughest moments. What if every obstacle was an opportunity in disguise? This is the essence of Stoicism's powerful principle known as the love of fate. At its core, it's about embracing everything that happens in your life, not just the good moments, but the challenges, the setbacks, and even the unexpected twists. It's not about passive resignation. It's about actively choosing to see every event as a stepping stone toward growth and resilience. One of the great Stoic philosophers once said, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it." Think about that for a moment. A fire doesn't distinguish between what's thrown into it, whether it's dry wood or damp leaves. It uses everything to burn brighter. In the same way, invites us to take whatever life throws at us and use it to fuel our own growth. Let's bring this to life with an example. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously faced countless failures while inventing the. Instead of seeing each failed attempt as a defeat, he reframed it, saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Every setback became a lesson, every obstacle a teacher. That's in action, turning adversity into a path forward. Now think about your own life. Can you recall a recent setback or challenge? Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a difficult conversation, or an unexpected change in plans. What if, instead of resisting it, you chose to see it as an opportunity to learn, adapt, or grow? How might that shift in perspective change the way you approach the situation? By embracing, you're not just accepting life as it comes, you're actively transforming the way you experience it. Every difficulty becomes a chance to build strength, every failure a lesson in resilience. And when you start to see life through this lens, you'll find that even the toughest moments can become sources of light, just like that blazing fire. The present moment is all we truly have. How are you using it? For the Stoics, mindfulness wasn't just a buzzword, it was a way of life. They understood that our greatest source of anxiety often comes from dwelling on the future or regretting the past. But the truth is, the only time we can act, think, or feel is right now. By focusing on the present, we regain control over our minds and strip away the unnecessary weight of what's beyond our reach. Epictetus once said, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them." This is a powerful reminder that our perception shapes our reality. When we're caught up in distractions, like endlessly scrolling through social media or juggling too many tasks at once, we lose sight of the present. We become reactive rather than intentional, letting external noise dictate our internal state. But when we cultivate mindfulness, we step back and see things as they are, not as our fears or regrets paint them. Think about how often you found yourself physically in one place but mentally somewhere else. Maybe you're at work, worrying about a future deadline, or at home, replaying a conversation from yesterday. The Stoics would argue that this mental scattering is what drains us. By bringing your attention back to the present, whether it's focusing on your breath, the task in front of you, or the people you're with, you reclaim your power. You stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the driver. Here's a challenge for you. Spend one day fully immersed in the present moment. Notice the details of your surroundings, the sounds, the textures, the colors. When your mind starts to wander, gently guide it back to what's happening right now. You might be surprised at how much clarity and calmness this simple practice can bring. After all, the present moment isn't just a fleeting second. It's the foundation of everything you do, think, and feel. How will you make the most of it? Emotions are like waves. They rise and fall, but you don't have to drown in them. This is the essence of emotional detachment, a core Stoic practice that teaches us to observe our feelings without letting them take control. Think of it as standing on the shore, watching the waves crash and recede, rather than being swept away by them. Emotional detachment isn't about suppressing what you feel or pretending emotions don't exist. It's about creating a space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often spoke about the dangers of letting anger or frustration dictate our actions. He said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." In other words, it's not the event itself that causes the most harm, but our unchecked reaction to it. By practicing detachment, we can step back, assess the situation calmly, and decide how to act in a way that aligns with our values, rather than being pulled by the heat of the moment. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off. The immediate surge of frustration is natural, but instead of honking or yelling, what if you paused and reminded yourself that their actions are outside your control? What's within your control is how you respond. That small moment of detachment can save you from unnecessary stress and help you maintain your peace of mind. Now, take a moment to reflect on a recent situation where your emotions got the better of you. What could have happened if you had observed those feelings without letting them dictate your actions? How might that shift in perspective change the way you handle similar situations in the future? This is the power of emotional detachment. It's not about being cold or unfeeling, but about being free to choose how you respond, rather than being a slave to every passing emotion. What if discomfort was a tool for growth rather than something to avoid? This might sound counterintuitive, but the Stoics believed that intentionally seeking out hardship could be one of the most powerful ways to build resilience. They called this practice voluntary discomfort, and it's all about training yourself to face life's challenges with strength and calm. Think of it like lifting weights for your mind. Just as muscles grow stronger under stress, your ability to handle adversity improves when you willingly step into discomfort. The Stoic philosopher put it this way: how can we expect to endure hardship imposed by others if we cannot even tolerate the discomfort we choose for ourselves? He saw voluntary discomfort as a way to prepare for life's inevitable difficulties, reducing the fear and anxiety that often accompany them. So what does this look like in practice? It doesn't mean seeking out extreme suffering or putting yourself in danger. Instead, it's about small, deliberate acts that push you slightly out of your comfort zone. For example, taking a cold shower instead of a hot one, skipping a meal to practice fasting, or even choosing to walk instead of drive on a rainy day. These moments of mild discomfort train your mind to stay steady and adaptable, no matter what life throws at you. This week, why not try one small act of voluntary discomfort? It could be as simple as turning off the heater for a night or waking up 15 minutes earlier than usual. Notice how it feels to sit with that discomfort, and remind yourself that this is how you grow stronger, calmer, and more resilient. By embracing these small challenges, you're building a mindset that can handle far greater ones. How often do you pause to reflect on your day and its lessons? In the fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to get caught up in the chaos and forget to take a moment to look inward. Yet, this simple act of reflection is one of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers us for growth. The Stoics believed that daily reflection wasn't just a habit, it was a necessity for living a virtuous and intentional life. One of history's most famous Stoic philosophers made this practice central to his routine. His personal journal, later published as Meditations, is essentially a collection of reflections, thoughts on his actions, decisions, and how he could align himself more closely with Stoic virtues like wisdom, courage, and temperance. So what does daily reflection look like in practice? It's not about overanalyzing every detail of your day or beating yourself up for mistakes. Instead, it's a structured, intentional moment to ask yourself two key questions. What did I do well today? And what could I improve? These questions aren't meant to judge, but to guide. They help you recognize where you acted in alignment with your values and where you might have strayed. Over time, this habit builds self-awareness, helping you notice patterns in your behavior and make better choices moving forward. To make this practice even more tangible, try setting aside just 5 minutes before bed. Sit quietly, free from distractions, and think through your day. Maybe you handled a difficult conversation with patience, or perhaps you lost your temper in traffic. Both moments offer lessons. The first shows you what you're capable of, and the second reveals an area for growth. By doing this consistently, you'll start to see how small, daily improvements add up to significant personal transformation. Now here's a challenge for you. Tonight, before you go to sleep, take those 5 minutes. Reflect on your day not as a critic, but as someone committed to becoming the best version of yourself. What did you learn? What can you carry forward into tomorrow? This small act of reflection might just be the key to unlocking a more mindful, intentional life. Nothing lasts forever. How can this truth set you free? Stoicism teaches us that impermanence is not something to fear, but a fundamental truth of life. Everything from our greatest achievements to our most painful struggles is fleeting. The Stoics called this, or the love of fate, where we learn to embrace change rather than resist it. Think about it. The job you're so stressed about today might not even matter in 5 years. The relationship you're clinging to might already be shifting. When we accept that nothing is permanent, we free ourselves from the weight of attachment and the fear of loss. Epictetus once said, "Keep in mind that all things change and you yourself are in continuous flux." This isn't just a poetic observation, it's a practical tool. If you're stuck in a rut or overwhelmed by a challenge, remind yourself that this moment too will pass. It's not about dismissing your feelings, but about recognizing that they are temporary. The same goes for success. If you're riding high, enjoy it, but don't cling to it. Life's highs and lows are like waves. They rise, they fall, and they keep moving. Consider this. Maybe you're holding onto a job that no longer fulfills you, or a relationship that's run its course. Why? Often it's because we're afraid of the unknown. But what if, instead of fearing the end, you saw it as an opportunity for growth? Think about someone who's lost a job only to find a career they're truly passionate about, or someone who's ended a relationship and discovered a deeper sense of self. These aren't just stories, they're proof that impermanence can be a gateway to something better. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to identify one thing you're clinging to. It could be a goal, a habit, or even a mindset. Ask yourself, what would happen if you let it go? Not because it's bad, but because it's time. When we release our grip, we create space for new possibilities. And that's where real freedom begins. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a practice that transforms your perspective. In Stoicism, gratitude is more than saying thank you. It's a deliberate shift in how you see the world. It's about focusing on what you have, rather than what you lack, and finding contentment in the present moment. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic belief that true happiness comes from within, not from external circumstances. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers often reflected on the importance of appreciating the small things. In his personal writings, he reminded himself to be grateful for even the most mundane aspects of life, like the warmth of the sun or the ability to breathe freely. These simple acts of noticing and appreciating what's already present can profoundly shift your mindset. When you train yourself to see abundance instead of scarcity, you begin to realize how much you already possess. A practical way to incorporate this into your daily life is by keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, take a few moments to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as a good cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or even the fact that you woke up healthy. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to focus on the positive, helping you build resilience against life's inevitable challenges. So here's a question to reflect on. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? Take a moment to think about it. By doing this, you're not just acknowledging the good in your life, you're actively cultivating a mindset of abundance and peace. And that's the power of gratitude in action. What if your success was measured by your character, not your achievements? This is the core of the Stoic principle that virtue is the highest good. For the Stoics, true fulfillment doesn't come from wealth, fame, or external accomplishments. Instead, it's found in living a life guided by wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. These virtues aren't just abstract ideals, they're practical tools for navigating life's challenges with integrity and purpose. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This means clarifying the kind of person you want to become, someone who acts with honesty, fairness, and resilience, and then aligning your actions with that vision. It's about making choices that reflect your values, even when it's difficult or inconvenient. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're faced with a situation at work where cutting corners could lead to a quick promotion. The easy path might be to take the shortcut, but the virtuous path, the one aligned with wisdom and justice, would be to do the right thing, even if it means slower progress. That's Stoicism in action, choosing integrity over instant gratification. Now think about your own life. Where can you act more virtuously? Maybe it's in how you treat others, how you handle setbacks, or how you stay true to your principles when no one's watching. Virtue isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every small decision to act with kindness, courage, or fairness is a step toward becoming the person you aspire to be. Why do we let others' opinions dictate our happiness? This question lies at the heart of Strategy 11, letting go of external validation. In a world where likes, comments, and approvals often feel like the measure of our worth, Stoicism offers a powerful alternative. It teaches us to find value within ourselves, rather than relying on the fleeting opinions of others. This isn't about rejecting feedback or isolating yourself. It's about building an unshakable foundation of self-worth that doesn't crumble under external judgment. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, wrote extensively about the futility of seeking validation from others. He argued that when we tie our happiness to what others think, we surrender control over our own emotions. Imagine spending hours crafting a social media post, only to feel deflated if it doesn't get the engagement you hoped for. Or consider the workplace, where the desire for praise might lead you to overwork or compromise your values. In both cases, the external validation you're chasing is temporary. It can't sustain you in the long run. Seneca reminds us, what does it matter what anyone else says, thinks, or does? Look to your own self and ask whether you are acting justly and with integrity. So how can we apply this in our daily lives? Start by identifying one area where you constantly seek approval. Is it your appearance, your career, or your relationships? Once you've pinpointed it, reflect on why that external validation matters so much. Then shift your focus inward. Ask yourself, what do I truly value about myself in this area? What actions align with my principles, regardless of how others might react? This shift in perspective can be liberating. It doesn't mean you'll never care about others' opinions. It means you'll no longer let those opinions define your self-worth. Think about the last time you felt truly at peace. Chances are, it wasn't when you were obsessing over what someone else thought of you. It was likely a moment when you felt aligned with your own values, when you acted with authenticity and purpose. That's the essence of Stoic self-mastery. When you stop seeking validation from the outside, you reclaim your power to live a life rooted in your own truth. So the next time you feel the pull of external approval, pause. Remind yourself that your worth isn't determined by others. It's something you carry within you always. What if you could face challenges with calmness and clarity, no matter how daunting they seem? This is the heart of the Stoic practice known as, or the Premeditation of Evils. At its core, it's about anticipating potential difficulties, not to dwell on fear, but to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for whatever life throws your way. Think of it as a mental rehearsal for adversity, a way to build resilience and reduce anxiety before challenges even arise. The Stoic philosopher Seneca famously said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." By imagining the worst-case scenarios and confronting them in our minds, we strip them of their power to overwhelm us. This isn't about pessimism, it's about preparation. When you've already considered how you'd handle a difficult situation, you're far less likely to be caught off guard or paralyzed by fear when it happens. Consider a modern example. You're about to have a tough conversation with a colleague or loved one. Instead of dreading it or hoping it goes perfectly, take a moment to mentally walk through the conversation. What's the worst that could happen? How might they respond, and how would you handle it? By visualizing these possibilities, you're not only preparing your responses but also calming your nerves. You're reminding yourself that even if things don't go as planned, you'll be ready to adapt. This practice isn't just for major life events. It's equally powerful for everyday challenges. Imagine you're preparing for a big presentation or a job interview. Instead of fixating on what could go wrong, use to envision those obstacles and plan your way through them. What if the technology fails during your presentation? What if the interviewer asks a question you're not prepared for? By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, you're equipping yourself to stay composed and resourceful in the moment. Take a moment now to reflect on a challenge you're currently facing. What's the worst-case scenario, and how would you respond? Visualize yourself handling it with calmness and clarity. This mental exercise isn't about inviting fear, it's about building confidence. When you've already faced the worst in your mind, everything else feels manageable. How can you stay calm when everything around you is chaotic? The Stoics believed that the key to a fulfilling life lies in mastering your emotions, not in controlling the external world. This is where the practice of equanimity comes in, a steady, balanced state of mind that remains unshaken, no matter what happens around you. Equanimity isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about acknowledging what you feel, then choosing not to let those feelings dictate your actions. This idea is at the heart of Stoic philosophy, which teaches us that while we can't control external events, we can always control how we respond to them. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers wrote extensively about this in his personal reflections. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound insight reminds us that our peace of mind isn't tied to what happens to us, but to how we interpret and react to it. When you cultivate equanimity, you're not ignoring chaos or pretending it doesn't exist. Instead, you're choosing to meet it with clarity and composure. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Your first instinct might be to feel frustrated, maybe even angry. But what if, instead of letting those emotions take over, you paused and reminded yourself that the traffic is outside your control? What if you used that moment to focus on what you can control? Your breathing, your thoughts, or even how you'll handle the meeting once you arrive. This shift in perspective is the essence of equanimity. It's not about eliminating stress, but about changing your relationship with it. Another scenario might be a heated argument with a loved one. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say things you don't mean or react impulsively. But with equanimity, you can step back, take a breath, and respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. This doesn't mean you avoid addressing the issue. It means you approach it with a clear mind and a calm demeanor, which often leads to more productive and meaningful conversations. So here's a challenge for you. Think about one situation in your life where you often feel overwhelmed or reactive. It could be a stressful work deadline, a disagreement with a friend, or even something as simple as waiting in a long line. The next time you find yourself in that situation, pause for a moment, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what can I control here? And how can I respond with calmness and balance? By practicing this small but powerful shift, you'll be taking the first step toward cultivating equanimity, and in turn, a more peaceful and resilient way of living. What if saying no to yourself made you stronger? This is the heart of Strategy 14 in our series, Practice Self-Denial. At first glance, it might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone willingly give up something they enjoy or find comfort in? But the Stoics saw self-denial as a powerful tool for building discipline, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for what we already have. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about training your mind to resist impulses and cultivate gratitude. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply, "He who is not satisfied with a little is satisfied with nothing." This idea of simplicity and moderation is central to self-denial. By occasionally saying no to excess, whether it's indulging in luxuries, overconsumption, or even the constant need for stimulation, we learn to find contentment in less. It's a practice that sharpens our self-control and reminds us that happiness doesn't come from external things, but from our ability to master our desires. So how can this ancient wisdom apply to modern life? Think about the constant stream of distractions we face daily: social media, endless entertainment, or even the temptation to overspend. A digital detox, for example, where you step away from screens for a set period, can be a form of self-denial. It's not about permanently cutting out technology, but about creating space to reconnect with yourself and the present moment. Minimalism, too, aligns with this Stoic principle. By decluttering your physical space and focusing on what truly matters, you train yourself to value quality over quantity. Here's a challenge for you. This week, try one act of self-denial. It could be as simple as skipping dessert, turning off notifications for a day, or resisting the urge to buy something you don't need. Notice how it feels. Does it create a sense of strength or frustration? The goal isn't to deprive yourself indefinitely, but to practice the art of saying no, so that when life demands it, you're ready. What if success wasn't about the outcome, but the journey? This is the heart of Strategy 15, a powerful Stoic approach that shifts our focus from the results we crave to the actions we take. In a world obsessed with achievements and milestones, Stoicism reminds us that true fulfillment lies in valuing effort and intention over the final outcome. It's about embracing the process, even when the results are uncertain. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, often wrote about the importance of concentrating on what's within our control. He said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." In other words, our energy is best spent on the actions we can influence, our effort, our attitude, our persistence, rather than fixating on outcomes that may or may not come to pass. This mindset doesn't just reduce anxiety, it builds resilience. When we stop worrying about the end result, we free ourselves to fully engage in the present moment where real progress happens. Think about a fitness goal, for example. Instead of obsessing over the number on the scale or the size of your biceps, what if you focused on the daily habits, showing up for your workout, eating nourishing meals, or getting enough rest? By celebrating these small, consistent actions, you're not only more likely to reach your goal, but you'll also enjoy the journey along the way. The same applies to creative projects. Whether you're writing a book, painting, or learning an instrument, the joy comes from the act of creation itself, not just the finished product. So here's a challenge for you. Pick one goal you're working toward right now. Maybe it's a career milestone, a personal project, or even a relationship you're nurturing. Instead of fixating on the outcome, ask yourself, what can I do today to move closer to this goal? Focus on the process, the small, intentional steps, and let the results take care of themselves. When you shift your attention in this way, you'll find that the pressure lifts and the journey becomes its own reward. How can understanding others' pain help us grow? This question lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, which teaches us that empathy is not just a moral virtue, but a tool for personal development. The Stoics believed that we are all interconnected, part of a larger whole, and that by practicing sympathy for others, we not only strengthen our relationships but also cultivate inner peace. Once wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. This reminder isn't meant to judge others, but to help us see their actions as reflections of their struggles, not as personal attacks. Empathy, in the Stoic sense, isn't about agreeing with everyone or excusing harmful behavior. It's about recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles, often invisible to the outside world. When we approach conflicts or misunderstandings with this mindset, we can respond with patience and clarity rather than frustration or anger. For example, imagine a who seems irritable or dismissive. Instead of reacting defensively, consider what might be causing their behavior: stress, insecurity, or personal challenges. By shifting your perspective, you can de-escalate tension and foster a more constructive dialogue. This practice also extends to challenging relationships. Think about someone in your life who often frustrates or disappoints you. What if, for a moment, you tried to see the world through their eyes? What fears or struggles might they be carrying? This doesn't mean you have to condone their actions, but it can help you respond with compassion rather than resentment. As you reflect on this, consider how practicing empathy might transform not only your interactions, but also your own sense of well-being. After all, understanding others is a profound way to understand ourselves. What if criticism was a gift rather than an attack? It's a radical shift in perspective, but one that Stoicism champions wholeheartedly. Instead of seeing criticism as a blow to your ego, imagine it as a mirror reflecting areas where you can grow and improve. The Stoics believed that every piece of feedback, no matter how harsh, holds the potential to teach us something valuable about ourselves. This mindset doesn't just soften the sting of criticism, it transforms it into a tool for self-mastery. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, offered this insight. If someone tells you that someone is speaking ill of you, don't defend yourself against what was said. Instead, reply, "He must not know my other faults, or he would have mentioned those as well." At first glance, this might seem like self-deprecation, but it's actually a profound act of humility. By accepting criticism without resistance, we disarm its power to upset us and open ourselves to genuine self-reflection. After all, if someone points out a flaw, isn't it better to acknowledge it and work on it rather than deny its existence? Let's bring this into a modern context. Think about a time you received feedback at work. Maybe your manager pointed out a mistake in a project or suggested ways to improve your performance. It's easy to feel defensive or even embarrassed in that moment. But what if you paused and asked yourself, "What can I learn from this?" Perhaps the critique reveals a blind spot you weren't aware of or highlights a skill you need to develop. When you approach criticism with curiosity rather than resistance, it becomes less about judgment and more about growth. Here's a challenge for you. Reflect on a recent criticism you received, whether it was at work, in a relationship, or even from a stranger. Instead of dismissing it or dwelling on the negative emotions it stirred, ask yourself, is there even a small grain of truth here? How can I use this to become better? This simple act of reflection can turn an uncomfortable moment into a stepping stone toward becoming the best version of yourself. Criticism, when embraced with grace, isn't just feedback, it's fuel for progress. In a noisy world, how can silence be your greatest ally? The Stoics understood that amidst the chaos of daily life, moments of quiet reflection are essential for clarity and self-awareness. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's a deliberate space where we can step back, observe our thoughts, and reconnect with what truly matters. Seneca, one of Stoicism's great thinkers, often wrote about the importance of solitude. He believed that spending time alone allowed us to hear our inner voice, free from the distractions and opinions of others. In one of his letters, he said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." This courage, he argued, comes from knowing ourselves deeply, and that self-knowledge is best cultivated in stillness. So how can we apply this ancient wisdom today? One practical way is through meditation, a practice that creates intentional silence and helps us observe our thoughts without judgment. Another simple yet powerful approach is to unplug from technology for a set period each day. Whether it's turning off your phone, stepping away from social media, or just sitting quietly in a park, these small acts of solitude can have a profound impact on your mental clarity and emotional resilience. Here's a challenge for you. Carve out just 10 minutes today to sit in silence. No distractions, no agenda, just you and your thoughts. Notice how it feels to step away from the noise, even briefly. What do you notice about your mind? What insights arise when you give yourself the gift of quiet? This simple practice might feel uncomfortable at first, but like any skill, it grows stronger with time. And in a world that never stops talking, silence can become your most powerful tool for inner peace. What if striving for perfection was holding you back? It's a question worth asking, especially in a world that often glorifies flawless outcomes. The Stoics understood something profound. Perfectionism isn't just unrealistic, it's a barrier to growth. Instead of chasing an unattainable ideal, they focused on progress, on doing their best with what they had. This mindset isn't about settling for less. It's about freeing yourself from the paralyzing weight of needing everything to be just right. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it simply, "No great thing is created suddenly." He reminds us that even the most impressive achievements are the result of small, imperfect steps. If you're waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan, you might never start at all. And that's where the real loss happens, not in the imperfections, but in the opportunities missed because fear of failure kept you standing still. Think about a creative project you've been putting off. Maybe you've been waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect tools, or the perfect time to begin. But what if you started today, even if it's messy? What if the first draft didn't have to be flawless? That's the Stoic approach, action over perfection. By embracing imperfection, you're not lowering your standards. You're giving yourself permission to grow, to learn, and to improve through experience. The same principle applies to personal goals. Maybe you've been holding back from pursuing a new skill or habit because you're afraid of not being good enough right away. But Stoicism teaches us that progress is more valuable than perfection. Each small step forward, each lesson learned from mistakes, is what builds resilience and mastery over time. So here's a challenge. Identify one area in your life where you can let go of perfectionism. Is it in your work, your relationships, or even how you view yourself? Take a moment to reflect on what might change if you shifted your focus from being perfect to simply being present, to doing your best with what you have in this moment. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate mistakes, it's to embrace them as part of the journey. How can humility make you stronger and more connected? At first glance, humility might seem like a quiet, unassuming trait, something that keeps you in the background. But in Stoicism, humility is far from weakness. It's a powerful tool for growth, connection, and understanding. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from recognizing our limitations and embracing the fact that we don't have all the answers. This self-awareness allows us to learn from others, build deeper relationships, and navigate life with grace. One of Stoicism's most famous practitioners often reflected on humility in his writings. He reminded himself, "You will never be a wise man if you cannot first be a humble one." For him, humility wasn't about diminishing oneself, but about seeing the world as it truly is. It's about acknowledging that we are part of something larger, a community, a shared humanity, and that our individual egos are just small pieces of a much bigger picture. So how does this play out in real life? Think about leadership. A humble leader doesn't need to prove their superiority or demand respect. Instead, they inspire trust and loyalty by listening, learning, and valuing the contributions of others. In personal relationships, humility helps us resolve conflicts more effectively. When we approach disagreements with an open mind and a willingness to admit our faults, we create space for understanding and connection. Here's a simple way to practice humility today. Reflect on a recent interaction where you felt defensive or resistant to feedback. Could you have approached it differently? What might change if you chose to listen more and assert yourself less? Humility isn't about surrendering your voice. It's about using it wisely with respect for yourself and others. By embracing this virtue, you'll find that it doesn't weaken you. It empowers you to grow, connect, and thrive. How can seeing the big picture help you navigate small struggles? This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, understanding that the obstacles we face today are often just tiny dots on the canvas of our entire lives. When we zoom out, we gain perspective, and suddenly what felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The Stoics believed that by focusing on the larger context, we can reduce stress, find clarity, and make wiser decisions. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often reminded us of the brevity of life. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." When we're stuck in the weeds of a problem, it's easy to forget how fleeting our time truly is. By stepping back, we can ask ourselves, will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? Chances are the answer is no. This shift in perspective helps us prioritize what truly deserves our energy. Think about a career setback, for example. Losing a job or missing out on a promotion can feel devastating in the moment. But when you step back, you might realize it's just one chapter in a much longer story. Maybe it's an opportunity to pivot, learn, or even pursue something more aligned with your values. The same applies to personal conflicts. A disagreement with a friend or family member might seem insurmountable today, but in the grand scheme of your relationship, it's often just a small bump in the road. Take a moment to reflect on a challenge you're facing right now. How does it fit into the bigger picture of your life? Is it truly as significant as it feels in this moment? By zooming out, you might find that the weight of the problem lightens, giving you the clarity and calm to move forward with purpose. What if patience was the key to overcoming frustration? In a world that often feels like it's moving at lightning speed, the Stoic virtue of patience offers a powerful antidote to the chaos. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about how we wait. It's the ability to remain calm, composed, and focused, even when things don't go according to plan or take longer than we'd like. For the Stoics, patience was more than a virtue. It was a practice of acceptance, a way to align ourselves with the natural timing of life. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that meaningful progress often requires time and persistence. Whether it's waiting for a project to come to fruition, enduring a challenging season of life, or dealing with delays that feel out of your control, patience teaches us to endure without losing our peace. It's not about passively sitting back. It's about actively choosing to trust the process, even when it's uncomfortable. Think about a time when you had to wait for something important, a job offer, a test result, or even a personal goal you were working toward. In those moments, impatience can feel like a storm, stirring up anxiety and frustration. But what if, instead of resisting the wait, you leaned into it? What if you used that time to reflect, to grow, or to prepare yourself for what's next? That's the power of patience. It transforms waiting from a source of stress into an opportunity for self-mastery. So how can you practice patience in your own life? Start small. Maybe it's choosing not to react when stuck in traffic, or resisting the urge to check your phone every few minutes while waiting for a response. Each time you pause and breathe instead of rushing or reacting, you're strengthening your ability to handle life's delays with grace. Over time, these small acts of patience build resilience, helping you stay grounded no matter what challenges come your way. Take a moment to reflect. Where in your life could you benefit from a little more patience? Is there a situation where you've been rushing, pushing, or feeling frustrated by the pace of things? What would it look like to approach that situation with a Stoic mindset, accepting the timing and trusting that things will unfold as they should? Patience isn't just a virtue, it's a practice, and like any skill, it grows stronger with use. How can letting go of resentment set you free? This is a question that cuts to the core of one of life's most challenging emotional burdens, holding onto grudges. Stoicism teaches us that resentment is like carrying a heavy weight. It doesn't punish the person who hurt us, but instead weighs us down, draining our energy and clouding our judgment. By releasing that resentment, we reclaim our emotional freedom and open ourselves to a more peaceful, focused life. One of Stoicism's greatest thinkers once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." What he meant was this: when someone wrongs us, the most powerful response isn't to retaliate or dwell on the hurt, it's to rise above it. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior. It means refusing to let that behavior control our inner world. It's about choosing peace over turmoil, clarity over chaos. Think about a time when you felt deeply wronged, whether by a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger. Holding onto that anger might have felt justified in the moment, but over time it likely became a source of tension, distracting you from what truly matters. Stoicism invites us to ask ourselves, is this resentment serving me? Is it helping me grow, or is it keeping me stuck? When we confront these questions honestly, we often find that letting go is the wiser, more liberating choice. Here's a practical way to start. Take a moment to reflect on one grudge you've been carrying. It could be something recent or a wound from years ago. Now, imagine what it would feel like to release it, not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. This act of letting go isn't about them. It's about you. It's about reclaiming your power and redirecting your energy toward what truly matters in your life. By practicing this Stoic strategy, you're not just freeing yourself from the past. You're creating space for growth, clarity, and a deeper sense of inner calm. And in doing so, you're living out one of the most profound teachings of Stoicism, that our greatest strength lies in our ability to choose how we respond to the world around us. What if courage wasn't the absence of fear, but action despite it? This is the heart of the Stoic approach to courage, a virtue not defined by the lack of fear, but by the willingness to move forward even when fear is present. The Stoics believed that courage is a choice, a deliberate act of stepping into discomfort rather than running from it. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." This isn't just poetic. It's a profound reminder that life itself often demands bravery, especially when we face uncertainty or adversity. Courage, in the Stoic sense, isn't about being fearless. It's about recognizing fear, understanding it, and then deciding to act in alignment with your values and goals anyway. Think about public speaking, for example. Many people feel nervous or even terrified at the thought of standing in front of an audience. But courage isn't about eliminating those butterflies. It's about speaking anyway because you believe in the message you're sharing. Or consider taking a risk, like starting a new career or pursuing a passion project. Fear might whisper doubts in your ear, but courage helps you take that first step, even when the outcome is uncertain. So how can you practice this kind of courage in your own life? Start small. Identify one area where fear is holding you back, whether it's having a difficult conversation, trying something new, or simply saying no to something that doesn't align with your values. Then, take one step forward, no matter how small it feels. Remember, courage isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's about the quiet, consistent choices we make every day to face our fears and grow stronger because of them. What's one courageous step you can take today? How can focusing on one thing at a time transform your productivity and peace? The Stoics understood that our minds are easily scattered, pulled in countless directions by distractions, worries, and the endless to-do lists of modern life. But one of the most powerful Stoic strategies for overcoming this chaos is to focus entirely on the present task. This isn't just about productivity. It's about reclaiming your mental clarity and finding calm in the midst of life's demands. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential and do it well." This idea isn't about doing fewer things. It's about doing one thing at a time with your full attention. When we scatter our focus across multiple tasks, we dilute our energy and often end up accomplishing less, feeling more stressed, and losing sight of what truly matters. Think about a time when you tried to multitask. Maybe you were answering emails while listening to a podcast, or cooking dinner while scrolling through your phone. How often did you feel truly present in either activity? The Stoics believed that by dividing our attention, we rob ourselves of the depth and satisfaction that comes from fully immersing ourselves in a single task. Whether it's a work project, a household chore, or even a conversation with a loved one, Giving it your undivided attention transforms it from a mundane obligation into an opportunity for mindfulness and mastery. Here's a practical way to apply this Stoic principle today. Set aside 1 hour to focus entirely on a single task. It could be writing a report, cleaning your home, or even reading a book. Turn off notifications, silence your phone, and commit to staying present. You might be surprised by how much more you accomplish and how much calmer you feel. This practice isn't just about efficiency. It's a way to train your mind to stay grounded in the present moment. The Stoics taught that by doing one thing well, we cultivate discipline, reduce anxiety, and create space for tranquility. So, what task will you choose to focus on today? How might this small shift in attention bring more clarity and peace to your day? How can giving to others enrich your own life? At first glance, it might seem counterintuitive. Why should we focus on others when we have our own challenges to face? But Stoicism teaches us that generosity isn't just about helping others. It's about cultivating a deeper sense of connection and purpose within ourselves. The Stoics believed that we are all part of a larger whole, and by giving freely, we strengthen the bonds that tie us together. Once wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." This idea reminds us that even small acts of kindness ripple outward, creating a lasting impact far beyond what we can see. Generosity in the Stoic sense isn't about grand gestures or expecting something in return. It's about giving without attachment to the outcome. Think of it as planting a seed. You don't stand over it, demanding it grow. You simply nurture it and trust the process. This mindset aligns with the Stoic principle of focusing on what's within our control. We can't control how others respond to our generosity, but we can control the intention behind our actions. Consider volunteering your time at a local shelter or simply helping a friend move house. These acts, while seemingly small, reinforce the Stoic idea of interconnectedness. They remind us that we're not isolated beings, but part of a shared human experience. Even something as simple as offering a listening ear or a kind word can be a profound act of generosity. So here's a challenge for you today. Perform one act of generosity. It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. Maybe it's holding the door for a stranger or sending a thoughtful message to someone who's been on your mind. Notice how it makes you feel. Does it shift your perspective? Does it remind you of the larger web of relationships we're all woven into? Stoicism teaches us that by giving freely, we not only enrich the lives of others, but also nurture our own sense of fulfillment and peace. How can letting go of comparisons free you from envy and insecurity? This is a question that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to focus on what is truly within our control, our own thoughts, actions, and character. When we constantly measure ourselves against others, we invite unnecessary suffering into our lives. It's easy to fall into the trap of comparing our careers, relationships, or even our social media presence to those around us. But the Stoics remind us that such comparisons are not only futile but also harmful. As Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, true growth begins when we stop worrying about how we stack up against others and instead focus on our own progress. Think about it. When you scroll through social media, do you feel inspired or inadequate? For many of us, it's the latter. We see curated snapshots of other people's lives, their successes, their vacations, their milestones, and we start to question our own worth. But here's the truth. These comparisons are illusions. They distract us from the reality of our own journey, which is the only one we have the power to shape. The Stoics would argue that your value isn't determined by how you measure up to someone else's achievements. It's determined by how well you align your actions with your principles and how steadfastly you pursue your own goals. Let's take a practical example. Imagine two colleagues working in the same field. One gets promoted faster while the other feels stuck in their role. The Stoic approach would be for the second person to focus not on their colleague's success but on their own growth. What skills can they improve? What steps can they take to move forward? By redirecting their energy inward, they can find clarity and purpose instead of resentment or self-doubt. This shift in perspective is liberating. It allows us to celebrate others' successes without letting them overshadow our own. So, where in your life do you find yourself making comparisons? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even your personal habits? Take a moment to reflect on one area where you can let go of this habit. What would it feel like to focus solely on your own path, without the weight of comparison holding you back? The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from mastering this mindset, one where we are at peace with ourselves, no matter what others achieve. By embracing this practice, you can reclaim your energy and direct it toward what truly matters, your own growth and fulfillment. What if change wasn't something to fear, but something to embrace? This is the heart of Stoic wisdom when it comes to dealing with life's constant shifts. The Stoics understood that change is not only inevitable, but often a force for growth. They saw impermanence as a fundamental truth of existence, something to be acknowledged rather than resisted. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often wrote about this idea, reminding us that everything flows and nothing stays the same. He urged us to see change not as an enemy but as a teacher, guiding us toward greater resilience and adaptability. Think about it. How often do we cling to familiarity, even when it no longer serves us? Maybe it's staying in a job that feels safe but unfulfilling, or holding on to relationships that have run their course. The Stoics would challenge us to ask ourselves, what are we truly afraid of losing? And more importantly, what could we gain by letting go? Change, after all, is the catalyst for transformation. It's what pushes us to grow, to evolve, and to discover new possibilities we might never have imagined. Consider the example of a career transition. Many people resist changing jobs or industries, even when they feel stuck, because they fear the uncertainty that comes with it. But what if, instead of fearing that uncertainty, we saw it as an opportunity to learn, to stretch ourselves, and to build new skills? The Stoic approach would be to focus on what we can control, our effort, our mindset, and our willingness to adapt, while accepting that the outcome is ultimately beyond our control. This shift in perspective can turn what feels like a risk into an empowering step forward. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one change in your life that you've been resisting? Maybe it's a big life decision, or perhaps it's something smaller like a daily habit you know you need to let go of. How might embracing that change, rather than fighting it, open up new opportunities for growth? The Stoics remind us that resisting change is like trying to hold back the tide. It's exhausting and ultimately futile. But when we learn to flow with it, we find a deeper sense of peace and possibility. How can you develop the strength to face any challenge? The Stoics believed that true resilience comes from within, not from external circumstances, but from the discipline of your mind and emotions. This is where the practice of cultivating inner strength becomes essential. It's about training yourself to remain steady, no matter what life throws your way. One of the most renowned Stoic philosophers often reflected on this idea. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Inner strength isn't about avoiding pain or difficulty. It's about meeting those challenges head-on with clarity and composure. Think about a time when you faced a setback, maybe a missed opportunity, a failure, or even a personal loss. At that moment, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, but Stoicism teaches us to see these moments as opportunities to grow. For example, enduring hardship can reveal hidden reserves of strength you didn't know you had. It's like forging steel. It's through the heat and pressure that it becomes stronger. So how can you start building this kind of resilience? One practical way is to practice mental detachment. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless or indifferent. Rather, it's about observing your thoughts and feelings without letting them control you. When a difficult situation arises, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? By doing this, you're not just reacting, you're choosing your path forward. Take a moment to reflect. What's one area of your life where you could strengthen your inner resilience? Is it in how you handle criticism, manage stress, or bounce back from failure? By identifying that area and committing to small, consistent practices, like daily reflection or mindfulness, you can begin to build the kind of inner fortitude that the Stoics championed. Remember, resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you cultivate one thought, one decision at a time. How can simplifying your life bring you peace and clarity? The Stoics believed that by stripping away the unnecessary, we create space for what truly matters. In a world filled with endless distractions, practicing simplicity is not just about having fewer possessions. It's about cultivating focus, intentionality, and inner calm. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This idea challenges us to rethink what we truly need to live a fulfilling life. Think about it. How often do we clutter our days with commitments, gadgets, or habits that drain our energy instead of adding value? Simplicity, in the Stoic sense, is about removing those distractions so we can direct our attention toward what aligns with our values and goals. It's not about deprivation, but about making room for what truly enriches us. Take decluttering, for example. When you clear out a cluttered space, you're not just organizing your environment, you're creating mental clarity. The same principle applies to your schedule. By reducing unnecessary commitments, you free up time to focus on relationships, personal growth, or even moments of stillness. The act of simplifying becomes a powerful tool to reclaim your energy and attention. This week, consider experimenting with simplicity in one area of your life. Maybe it's cleaning out a drawer, saying no to an obligation that doesn't serve you, or spending an evening without screens. Notice how it feels to let go of what isn't essential. What do you gain when you make space for what truly matters? Simplicity isn't just a practical choice. It's a mindset that helps us live more deliberately and authentically. How can practicing justice improve your relationships and community? At its core, justice is about fairness, respect, and recognizing the inherent value of every person. The Stoics believed that justice wasn't just a societal obligation but a personal virtue, a way of living that strengthens our connections with others and contributes to the greater good. Once wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our actions ripple outward, affecting not just ourselves but everyone around us. When we practice justice, we're not just following rules or laws, we're aligning ourselves with a deeper sense of integrity. Think about a time when someone treated you unfairly. How did it feel? Now, imagine the impact when someone goes out of their way to ensure fairness, even in small ways. Maybe it's advocating for a colleague who's being overlooked or mediating a disagreement between friends. These acts of justice, no matter how small, create trust and build stronger bonds. The Stoics also emphasized that justice is rooted in our interconnectedness. We're all part of a larger whole, and our well-being is tied to the well-being of others. When we act justly, we're not just helping someone else, we're contributing to a healthier, more harmonious world. So, how can you put this into practice today? It could be as simple as listening more deeply to someone's perspective, standing up for what's right even when it's uncomfortable, or offering help to someone in need. Take a moment to reflect. What's one way you can embody justice in your daily life? Whether it's in your family, workplace, or community, small acts of fairness and respect can have a profound impact. As the Stoics remind us, living justly isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally acts with fairness and compassion. And in doing so, we not only improve our own lives, but also create a ripple effect that benefits everyone around us. What if your challenges were your greatest teachers? This might sound counterintuitive at first, but Stoicism teaches us to shift our perspective and see difficulties not as burdens, but as opportunities for growth. Imagine every obstacle as a chance to build resilience, to learn something new, and to emerge stronger than before. This is the heart of Strategy 32, practicing gratitude for challenges. The Stoics believe that life's trials are not random or meaningless. Instead, they are essential to our development. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it this way: difficulties are things that show a person what they are. In other words, challenges reveal our true character and test our ability to adapt. They force us to confront our limits and, in doing so, help us expand them. Think about a time when you faced a major setback, perhaps a job loss, a failed project, or a personal struggle. At the time, it might have felt overwhelming, even devastating. But looking back, didn't that experience teach you something valuable? Maybe it showed you a strength you didn't know you had, or it pushed you to develop new skills. This is the Stoic mindset in action, finding the hidden gift in every hardship. Let's take a practical example. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it's a blow to their confidence and financial stability. But instead of dwelling on the loss, they choose to see it as an opportunity. They use the time to their career path, learn new skills, or even start a business. In the end, what seemed like a setback becomes a stepping stone to something greater. This is the power of gratitude in action, transforming adversity into advantage. So how can you apply this strategy in your own life? Start by identifying one challenge you're currently facing. It could be something big, like a health issue, or something smaller, like a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Now ask yourself, what can this situation teach me? How is it helping me grow? By shifting your focus from frustration to gratitude, you'll not only change how you feel about the challenge, but you'll also unlock the potential for meaningful growth. This isn't about ignoring the pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of struggle, there's something to be gained. When you practice gratitude for your challenges, you're not just enduring them, you're using them as tools to become the best version of yourself. And that, in the Stoic view, is true wisdom. How can letting go of the need for approval set you free? This question lies at the heart of one of the most liberating Stoic practices, finding self-worth within yourself rather than relying on the opinions of others. The Stoics believe that true freedom comes from understanding that your value isn't determined by what others think of you. Instead, it's rooted in your own actions, choices, and character. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "What does it matter what anyone says or thinks about you? You're not going to take it with you when you die." This blunt yet powerful reminder challenges us to let go of the endless chase for external validation and focus on what truly matters, living in alignment with our principles. Think about how often we seek approval in our daily lives, whether it's through social media likes, workplace accolades, or even the opinions of friends and family. While these things can feel rewarding in the moment, they're fleeting. The Stoics would argue that tying your self-worth to these external measures is like building a house on shifting sand. It's unstable and ultimately unsatisfying. Instead, they teach us to cultivate an inner sense of worth by focusing on what we can control: our intentions, our efforts, and our ability to act with integrity. When you stop seeking approval, you free yourself from the constant pressure to meet others' expectations. You become the judge of your own life, and that's where real confidence begins. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're at work and you pour your energy into a project, hoping for recognition from your boss or colleagues. But what if that recognition never comes? The Stoic approach would be to ask yourself, did I do my best? Did I act with honesty and diligence? If the answer is yes, then that's enough. Your worth isn't diminished because someone else failed to notice your efforts. Similarly, consider social media. How many times have you posted something and anxiously waited for likes or comments? The Stoics would remind you that those external markers of approval don't define you. What matters is whether you're living authentically, not whether others validate your choices. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on one area of your life where you often seek approval. Is it at work? In your relationships? Online? Now imagine what it would feel like to let go of that need. How would it change the way you approach that situation? The Stoics believe that true peace comes from within, and by practicing this strategy, you're taking a powerful step toward that inner freedom. Remember, you don't need anyone's approval to live a meaningful life. You already have everything you need within you. How can letting go bring you peace and freedom? This question lies at the heart of Strategy 34, one of the most transformative Stoic practices. The art of letting go isn't about giving up or surrendering to chaos. It's about releasing your grip on things you can't control. Stoicism teaches us that attachment to outcomes, people, or possessions often leads to unnecessary suffering. When we cling too tightly, we create resistance to the natural flow of life, and that resistance can weigh us down. One of Stoicism's most revered voices once reflected, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound insight reminds us that our peace doesn't come from controlling the world around us, but from mastering our reactions to it. Life is impermanent by nature. Relationships change, possessions break, and plans fall apart. The Stoics didn't see impermanence as something to fear, but as a reminder to focus on what truly matters, our own character and inner resilience. Think about a time when you held onto something too tightly. Maybe it was a relationship that had run its course, a job you outgrew, or even a material possession you thought defined you. What did that attachment cost you? Stress, frustration, or even a sense of being stuck? Now, imagine what it would feel like to release that grip, not out of defeat, but out of understanding that some things are simply beyond your control. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing external circumstances to dictate your inner peace. Here's a practical way to apply this strategy. Take a moment to identify one thing in your life that you're holding onto too tightly. It could be a grudge, a past mistake, or even an expectation of how things should be. Ask yourself, what would happen if I let this go? Often, you'll find that the fear of releasing it is far worse than the act itself. By practicing this small but powerful step, you create space for clarity, freedom, and a deeper sense of calm. This isn't about becoming indifferent or detached from life. It's about choosing where to invest your energy. When you let go of what you can't control, you free yourself to focus on what you can, your thoughts, your actions, and your ability to respond with wisdom and grace. That's where true freedom lies. How can living with purpose transform your daily life? At its core, Stoicism teaches us that true fulfillment comes not from external achievements or fleeting pleasures, but from aligning our actions with a deeper sense of meaning. This is where the 35th strategy, cultivating a sense of purpose, becomes a cornerstone of Stoic practice. It's about understanding that every choice, every action, and every moment can be infused with intention when we connect them to something greater than ourselves. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often spoke about living in accordance with nature. He believed that our purpose lies in using reason to align our actions with the natural order of the world. For Epictetus, this meant embracing our roles in life, whether as a parent, a friend, a professional, or a community member, and performing them with integrity and virtue. He famously said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, define your purpose and let it guide your actions. But how does this translate into everyday life? Think about your career. Are you working simply to earn a paycheck, or are you contributing to something that feels meaningful to you? Stoicism doesn't demand that you change your job overnight, but it does ask you to reflect on how your work aligns with your values. Maybe it's about finding ways to serve others in your role, or perhaps it's about using your skills to create something that resonates with your sense of purpose. Even small shifts in perspective can make a significant difference. Or consider your personal goals. Are they driven by external validation, or do they stem from a genuine desire to grow and contribute? The Stoics remind us that purpose isn't about achieving fame or wealth. It's about living authentically and virtuously. For example, setting a goal to become more patient or compassionate isn't just about self-improvement. It's about becoming a better contributor to the world around you. So take a moment to reflect. What gives your life meaning? How can you align your daily actions with that purpose? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. Sometimes, it's as simple as showing kindness to a stranger, dedicating time to a passion project, or committing to being present with the people you care about. The key is to act with intention, knowing that even the smallest steps can lead to a life of greater fulfillment and impact. As we wrap up our journey through the 35 Stoic strategies, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on just how powerful these tools can be in navigating the challenges of modern life. Each strategy we've explored, whether it's focusing on what's within your control, practicing gratitude, or embracing discomfort as a teacher, offers a practical way to build resilience, master your emotions, and grow into the best version of yourself. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a toolkit, one that equips you to face life's uncertainties with clarity and calm. Think about it. How often do we let fear or doubt hold us back? How many times do we avoid taking action because the path seems too difficult? Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." These words remind us that the real obstacle is often our own hesitation. Stoicism teaches us to push past that hesitation, to act with courage even when the road ahead feels uncertain. But here's the thing, these strategies aren't meant to be theoretical. They're meant to be lived. Each day presents a new opportunity to practice Stoic principles, whether it's managing stress at work, handling a difficult conversation, or simply finding peace in the midst of chaos. The more you apply these ideas, the more natural they'll become, shaping not just how you think, but how you live. So what's next for you? Take a moment to consider which of these strategies resonates most with your current challenges. Maybe it's learning to accept what you can't change, or perhaps it's cultivating gratitude for the small victories in your day. Whatever it is, start small and build from there. Progress doesn't happen overnight, but every step you take brings you closer to a life of greater resilience and purpose. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. Stoicism has stood the test of time because it speaks to something universal, the human desire to live with meaning and strength. So, as you move forward, don't hesitate to share your experiences. How have these strategies helped you? What challenges are you working through? Let's keep the conversation going, because together we can all grow stronger. If you found value in these insights, consider subscribing for more Stoic wisdom to guide you on your path. And as always, thank you for joining me in exploring how ancient philosophy can help us thrive in the modern world. Until next time, dare to take that first step, because the journey, no matter how difficult, is always